Hey everyone, welcome back. In this class we're going to look at how we can utilize the command line of data compare for Oracle to set a comparison between a source and a target, generate a comparison report, as well as deploying the generated script from the command line to a target environment. So let's get started. In previous classes we saw how we could use the UI of data compare to set a source and a target for comparison. Now there's two ways you can actually interact with the command line. You can either save a project through the UI, similar to this one. So I've set my source, I've set my target for the comparison, and I've saved this as a project in a specific directory. Now what I can do with the command line is to basically run this project automatically. You can either run it based on a schedule or as part of an automated process. So let's go ahead and take a look at the commands that we're going to use for this. So I already have the command saved off here. So let's copy that and move over to PowerShell. So what we're doing here is we're pointing into that project that we've saved up from using the user interface of data compare. And we're also using the report switch and the script file switch to save off a report of the comparison as well as the deployment script generated by data compare. As you can see, it's fairly similar to the schema compare command line that we looked at in our previous class. So let's go ahead and execute this. Alright, so our data comparison is complete, and as you can see, it's come back with the report of what tables are different and how many records are different in each of those tables. So let's go ahead and take a look at the report that we saved off to disk. Alright, so here we're presented with an HTML report of all the tables that are different, and just like the UI, you can see where those differences are. So how many records only exist in your source, how many records exist in both but are different, and how many records exist in only the target, and how many of those are actually identical. And then further down here you can look at each individual table and see exactly where the differences are at a row level. And on top of that, we also saved off the actual deployment script. So if you go ahead and open this up, here's the deployment script generated to synchronize those differences that we just looked at through the report. So pretty much everything that you can do through the user interface can be done through the command line of data compare. Now, so far we haven't actually executed the deployment script against our target. So all we did was generating the deployment script, generating the comparison report using the command line. But you can also go ahead and execute and do the actual deployment through the command line. So let's go ahead and also try the second option of utilizing the command line without using a project. All right, so I'm going to copy the second command here. And similar to what we saw with schema compare, instead of using a project, we've actually used the source and the target switches to specify our comparison source and the comparison target. So here we've set a source as our widget dev schema, and we've set a target as our widget test schema, and we're using the same switches as we saw previously for generating the report as well as the deployment script. So let's go ahead and execute that. Okay, so as you can see, it went through the same process and it came back with the same list of differences. Now, in order to actually go ahead with the deployment, all I need to do here is to add the deployed switch to the end of my command. So let's go ahead and execute that. So it's gone through the same process, went through the comparison, and also deployed to our target environment. Now, besides the switches that we just looked at from this example, there's a lot more you can actually do. And there's, for example, comparisons options you can set and other switches to customize the behavior of the comparison, similar to what we experienced with the UI. So let's go ahead and take a look at the documentation for our data compare for Oracle and see what some of those additional switches are that we could use. Okay, so here you have a section on using the command line, and we can look at the command line switches. So as you can see, some of the switches that we already used are here, but there is a lot more that you can use here. So there might be cases where you, for example, you would want to exclude certain tables from comparison or include certain tables to be compared. So you can go ahead and use any of these switches, and each of these switches have description examples. So as you click on them, it will take you to that part of the document specifically for that switch, and you can see exactly what values can be used for each switch, and you can also look at some examples as needed. So hopefully you saw how easy it is to utilize the command line, just like how we did it with the UI in previous sessions for comparing databases in terms of data and also deploying the data out to target environments. Join us in our future session where we'll be looking at how we can utilize the command line of both schema compare and data compare to set up a CI/CD pipeline where we can run a continuous integration and build process as part of a CI process, as well as release out our build artifacts to target environments through the command line of these tools. Thanks for watching.